He sat on the front steps of his small house looking out at the empty road. The sky was turning orange as the sun went down behind the trees. The wind was still, the air felt heavy. It was Friday evening, but the street was too quiet. No kids playing outside, no cars passing by, only silence. He rubbed his hands together and stood up. Something did not feel right. It was like a shadow had passed through him. He looked around again, but everything looked normal. Still, his chest felt tight, like something bad was going to happen inside the house. His wife was cooking dinner. The smell of onions and garlic filled the air. His little daughter was drawing pictures with crayons on the floor. His son was playing with his toy truck on the couch. The cartoons were playing on the television, and the kids were laughing. It was a normal evening, but it did not feel normal to him. Walked into the house slowly, trying not to worry them. He smiled at his wife and she smiled back. But even she looked like she could feel something was wrong. She paused her stirring and looked toward the window. He looked at the kids and tried to act calm. He sat down and picked up the remote, but his hands were shaking a little. His son climbed into his lap, holding his toy truck. The man held him close. He did not want to let go. Then a sound came from outside, tires stopping on the road. He stood up and walked to the window. There was a black car parked in front of the house. The engine was running. The windows were too dark to see inside. He opened the door just a little and peeked out. A man stepped out of the car. Then another man followed. Both were wearing dark clothes and hats that covered their faces. They did not look like neighbors. They did not look like delivery people. They looked dangerous. He closed the door quickly and locked it. His wife grabbed the children and held them close. He told them to go to the bedroom in the back and stay quiet. She nodded and took the kids away. He moved fast to the kitchen and pulled out a wooden bat from under the sink. It was not much, but it was all he had. Then he heard glass breaking. The front window, then footsteps, heavy fast steps. He stood in the living room and waited. The first man stepped in through the broken window. The man with the bat swung as hard as he could. The bat hit the stranger in the shoulder, but the stranger did not fall. He just growled and pushed forward. Another man came through the front door. The man tried to fight, but they were strong. They knocked him down. They hit him in the head. Everything went black. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on the floor. His hands were tied. His head was bleeding. His ears were ringing. He tried to speak, but his mouth felt dry. He turned and pushed himself up. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. He stumbled down the hallway. The bedroom door was open. The bed was empty. The window was open. The blankets were on the floor. He ran from room to room. No one was there. Not his wife, not his daughter, not his son. Just him. He dropped to his knees and cried. He shouted their names again and again, but there was no answer. The hours passed slowly. He did not know how long he sat there. The front door was wide open. The wind moved through the house like a ghost. The night felt cold. When the police finally came, they found him sitting on the floor. His shirt was covered in blood. His hands were shaking. His eyes were full of tears. They asked what happened. He told them. He told them everything. The car, the men, the fight, and the silence after. They looked at him with doubt. Some of them thought he was lying. Some thought he was hiding something. He begged them to believe him. He told them to search the house. They found the broken window, the footprints, the blood, but no sign of the wife or the kids. The rooms were empty, like nothing had ever been there. They took him to the hospital. He sat in a small white room with his arms crossed over his chest. He kept looking at the door, waiting, hoping, but no one came. The nurse gave him water, but he did not drink. He could still hear the laugh of his daughter. He could still feel the small hand of his son holding his finger. He could still see the soft smile of his wife as she stirred the pot on the stove. He had survived, but they were gone, and no one knew where they went. No one could tell him why. No one knew if they were alive or dead. The man sat alone, with the weight of the night still pressing on his chest. He wished he had done more. He wished he had seen the signs earlier. He wished he could trade places with them. The house was just a house now, a broken place full of memories. He had lived through the crime, but lost everything that mattered, and the nightmare was only beginning. The man sat in the hospital room with his back against the cold wall. He had not spoken in hours. He kept thinking about the moment when everything changed. The black car, the glass breaking, the empty bedroom. His hands were bruised and bandaged. His face was swollen, but his heart hurt more than anything else. The police had asked their questions. They had taken photos. They had searched the house again and again, but they found nothing. No fingerprints, no messages, no sign of his wife, no trace of his children. They said they would keep looking. They said maybe his family had been taken. Maybe they were still alive, but their voices did not sound sure. They looked at him like they were still not certain if he was telling the truth. He sat in silence, listening to the clock on the wall tick slowly. Every second felt like a minute. Every minute felt like an hour. He closed his eyes and tried to remember his wife's voice. The way she used to hum in the kitchen. The way she smiled when their daughter danced in the living room. The way their son laughed when he played with his truck on the floor. He tried to hold on to those sounds, those images, but they were starting to fade. The police officer returned and told him he could leave the hospital. They had no reason to keep him. No charges, no answers, just questions. Man walked out of the building with nothing but his torn clothes and tired eyes. He did not go back to the house. He could not. It was just a place full of ghosts now. He checked into a small motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like dust and old carpet, but he did not care. He just needed a place to sit and think. Each night he stared at the ceiling, wondering where his family was. Were they scared? Were they hurt? Were they even alive? He knew he could not just wait. He had to do something. He had to find them. The police had said the men might have been part of a gang. Or maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the men had come to the wrong house. But he did not believe that. He felt deep inside that it was something more, something personal. He remembered something. One of the men had a scar on his hand, a long scar like a burn. That small detail stuck in his mind. It was the only clue he had. The next morning he went to the police station. He asked to see photos of known criminals in the area. He said he remembered a scar. They showed him books full of faces, one page at a time. Hours passed. His eyes burned from looking. Then he saw a face that made his blood go cold. A man with dark eyes and a burn scar across his right hand. The file said the man had been in prison for robbery and assault. He had been released 6 months ago. The officer wrote something down and nodded. They said they would look into it, but man knew they would move slow. Too slow. He could not wait. That night he went to the address listed in the file. It was an old house on the edge of a quiet street. He waited in the shadows, watching the windows. Hours passed and then he saw movement. A man came out of the house. The same face from the file. The same scar. The man followed him from a distance. He did not know what he would do. He just knew he had to know the truth. The scarred man walked to a bar. He sat at the counter drinking and talking to someone. The man stayed outside watching from across the street. Then he saw something. The scarred man pulled out a phone, showed a photo to the person next to him. The person laughed and nodded. The man crossed the street and stepped into the bar. He walked up behind them. His heart was beating so fast it felt like it would explode. He grabbed the scarred man by the shoulder. The scarred man turned and his eyes went wide. "Where is my family?" the man asked. "Where are they? What did you do?" The scarred man pushed him away and tried to run, but the man tackled him to the floor. Chairs fell. People shouted. The bartender called the police. The scarred man struggled and punched him in the face, but the man did not let go. He held on until the officers arrived and pulled them apart. The man was taken to the station again, this time in handcuffs. They told him he could not attack people in public. He shouted that this was the man. This was the one who came to his house. The scarred man denied everything. He said he had never seen the man before. He said he had been at work the night of the crime. But something was off. One of the officers checked the phone the scarred man had, and there it was, a photo of the man's house, taken from the outside, dated 2 days before the crime. The officer looked at the man, then at the photo, then at the scarred man. Things began to shift. The man was released the next morning, this time without handcuffs. The officers told him they would reopen the case. They would bring in the scarred man for more questions, but it could take time, too much time. The man left the station and sat on the steps outside. He looked up at the sky. He thought about his wife, his daughter, his son. He was getting closer. He could feel it. He was also afraid of what he might find, afraid of the truth. He whispered to himself as he stood up, "I will not stop, not until I bring them home." The man did not sleep that night. He sat in the motel room with the lights off and the window open. The sound of cars passing in the distance filled the room, but his mind was somewhere else. He kept thinking about the photo on the phone, the picture of his house, taken before the night everything changed. It was not random, it was planned. They had watched him. They had followed his family, and now someone knew where they were. The next morning he returned to the police station, but the officers said they had no new answers. The man with the scar was still denying everything. No confession, no location, no clue. They told him to be patient, but he could not wait anymore. Every second felt like a year. He needed to act fast. He started visiting places in town where people talked. Old cafes, rundown bars, small gas stations. He showed the photo of the scarred man to strangers. Most shook their heads, some ignored him, but one old man at a corner shop gave him a strange look. He leaned close and whispered, "I saw him 2 nights ago. He was with someone else. They were talking about a cabin near the woods. Said they had something hidden out there." The man thanked him and left quickly. He knew the woods well. He had gone camping there years ago with his son. There were many small cabins out there, some used, some abandoned. He packed water and a flashlight and left that night without telling anyone. The road to the woods was rough and full of dirt. His car moved slow over the rocks. The trees were tall and dark. The wind made the leaves whisper like voices. Parked near the edge of the forest and walked in with careful steps. His shoes sank into the soft ground. Moon was high above, but clouds kept hiding it. He walked for what felt like hours. Then he saw a light. It was small, faint, coming from behind thick trees. He moved closer, heart-pounding, breath shaking. There was a cabin, old and broken, but still standing. A single light glowed from the window. He crouched behind a tree and waited. Then he heard a sound, a voice. A child. His heart jumped. He moved closer, careful not to step on dry leaves. He looked through a crack in the wall. Inside he saw a small bed. 2 children sat close together. His children, his daughter and his son, alive. He wanted to burst in, hold them, cry with them. But he knew he had to be smart. He looked around. No sign of his wife. No sign of the men. He waited in the shadows. Minutes passed. Then the door opened. A man walked in. Not the one with the scar, a different one, but his face looked familiar, like someone from the photo at the police station. The man gave the kids food, spoke to them in a soft voice, like he was trying to make them forget where they were. The father felt his hands shake. He had no weapon, no phone, no help. He picked up a thick branch from the ground and waited. When the man stepped outside again to smoke, the father moved fast. He hit him hard on the back of the head. Man dropped with a cry. The kids screamed inside the cabin, but when they saw their father, they ran into his arms. He held them close. He could not stop the tears. He told them it was over. He was here. He would never leave them again. Then he asked the question he feared most. "Where is your mother?" The little girl looked down. She said they had taken her away 2 days ago. She said the men were angry because she had tried to escape. The father felt cold all over. He told them to stay inside the cabin. He tied the man to a chair with old ropes he found on the floor. Then he ran into the woods again, calling for her, searching for any sign. Hours passed. He found nothing. Just when he was about to give up, he saw a flash of something near a tree. It was cloth. He ran to it, There she was lying on the ground, her hands tied, her face pale, but she was breathing. He shouted her name, held her face in his hands. She opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "You found us," she whispered. He carried her back to the cabin. The sun was rising now. Light moved through the trees, warm and soft. They walked out of the woods together, the family together again. The kids in his arms, his wife holding his hand. He called the police from a nearby farm. The officers came fast. They arrested the man in the cabin, and later they found the one with the scar hiding in another town. It was over. The nightmare was over. Weeks passed. The family moved to a different city, a quiet place near the mountains, far from the pain and fear. The kids started school again. The wife smiled again, and the man finally slept without fear. But he never forgot what happened. He kept the branch he used that night, hung it on the wall, not as a weapon, but as a reminder he had survived. He had lost everything, but he had fought to bring it all back. Not every story ends in pain. Some stories rise from it, and he would never stop telling theirs. He never returned to the old house. He never wanted to walk through those broken walls again. But he kept one picture. A photo taken long ago, his wife holding their baby girl, his son standing in front of the house with a toy truck. A moment frozen in time before everything changed. People in the new town did not ask too many questions. They just saw a quiet man with tired eyes and two kids who stuck close to him wherever he went. The kids slowly laughed again. The wife slowly healed, and the man, he started writing. He told their story, not to get famous, not to get sympathy, but because he believed someone out there might be going through something dark, and they needed to know that survival was possible, that love was stronger than fear, that a father can fight through hell and still bring his family back. The book spread quietly at first, then one news channel picked it up, then a podcast, then a TV segment. Soon, people all across the country were talking about it. Some cried, some called him a hero, some just said thank you. He was not looking for attention. He just wanted the world to remember one thing: evil may come in the night, but a father's love does not sleep, a mother's courage does not fade, and children, no matter how small, carry the light of home. Justice had come slowly, but it had come. The men responsible were behind bars, and the law had finally spoken for those who had no voice that night. The man now walked every morning through the park with his daughter holding one hand and his son the other. He watched them chase each other, fall, laugh, get back up again, and he smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because they were together, and that in the end was everything. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.